Overboard? Sounds like he liked what he saw in a couple of those pots, but we're looking for more.
Sig Hansen's world shattered when his son-in-law Clark went overboard in the freezing, merciless waters of the Bering Sea. The crew had been working tirelessly, braving monstrous waves and biting winds when a single misstep turned the routine into tragedy. As panic spread and every second felt like a lifetime, could they find Clark alive in such deadly conditions? Or was it already too late? Let us uncover the dramatic moment lived at sea that made Sig to leave the show and never return. The fight to survive the frozen waves. Just as the crew got into their rhythm, tragedy struck. The deck was chaos, pots clanging, ropes snapping, and men yelling over the roar of the waves. Amidst the noise, a sudden cry broke through. Someone had gone overboard. The realization was like a gut punch. Clark, Sig's son-in-law, was in the freezing water fighting for his life. Every second counted. The crew sprang into action, throwing out a ring and pulling him back aboard. The air was thick with tension as they worked to save him, every movement fueled by desperation and fear. The ocean's grip had almost claimed him, but by some miracle, Clark made it back onto the deck, shivering and pale. Before we delve into this, it's clear that what happened to Clark was no simple accident, and the truth behind it will leave you more shaken than you could have imagined. For Sig, the incident was a harsh reminder of how quickly things can go wrong at sea. His voice cracked as he spoke about the moment he saw Clark go over. "I thought we were prepared for anything," he admitted later, his hands trembling. "But when it's family, it's different. It's too close, too personal." The physical cold of the Bering Sea was nothing compared to the emotional chill that settled over the crew that day. Sig's mind raced with questions. Could they have prevented this? Was he pushing the team too hard? The answers didn't come easily, and the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. Back in Seattle, Mandy's own struggles mirrored the challenges at sea. She'd received alarming news from her doctor about a subchorionic hemorrhage, a condition that put her and her baby at risk. Though reassured that the situation was stable, the fear lingered. Mandy tried to stay strong, but the distance from her father and husband made everything harder. Every call between her and Sig carried an unspoken worry. She needed them safe. They needed her healthy. The connection between them was strained but unbreakable, tied together by love and a shared hope for better days. As the Northwestern continued its season, the mood on board remained heavy. The crew's camaraderie was tested like never before. They knew the dangers of their work, but this close call brought those dangers into sharp focus. Every pot they hauled up reminded them of the fragility of life at sea. Sig, ever the leader, tried to steady the ship both literally and figuratively. But even he couldn't shake the lingering fear. What if the next time they weren't so lucky? Could he keep asking his family to endure this life? Despite everything, the work had to go on. The sea doesn't wait, and neither does the quota. Sig's decision to stay closer to town proved wise, allowing him to be more mobile and adjust to unforeseen challenges. Yet the emotional toll of this season was unlike anything he'd experienced before. Every glance at Clark, now recovering but visibly shaken, was a painful reminder of how close they'd come to tragedy. And every call to Mandy was a lifeline, grounding him in what truly mattered. As the Northwestern's crew worked tirelessly to meet their goals, Sig couldn't help but reflect on the choices that had brought them here. Was the pursuit of a 40,000-pound haul worth the risk to their lives? The question gnawed at him unanswered. The sea demands everything, but Sig was beginning to wonder how much more he could give. The weight of his responsibilities, as a captain, a father, and a husband, felt heavier than any crab pot they'd ever hauled. For Sig Hansen, this season wasn't just about survival in the physical sense, it was about confronting the emotional storms that come with a life at sea. Could he keep his family safe while fulfilling the demands of his profession? The balance seemed impossible to strike, yet he had no choice but to keep trying. The Northwestern's path continued, but the scars of this season would remain long after the final pot was pulled. In the end, it wasn't just the sea that tested them, it was life itself, unrelenting and unpredictable. After barely making it through one terrifying moment, the crew faced more challenges, showing just how dangerous life at sea can be. Life or death on the Bering Sea. Deadliest Catch throws you right into the middle of chaos on the open sea. The show captures the insane lives of Alaskan crab fishermen who fight against nature every single day. From monster waves to bone-chilling temperatures, this isn't just a job. It's a constant battle for survival. Take the FV Big Valley, for example. Back in January 2005, it sank, leaving only one of its 6 crew members alive. That's the kind of risk these fishermen face. It's not just dangerous, it's deadly. The FV Wizard has its own nightmare story. Battling a violent storm, the crew faced enormous waves and freezing winds that messed up their equipment and turned their deck into a death trap. Imagine trying to stay upright while the ocean throws everything it has at you. How do they even keep going? Captain Sig Hansen of the FV Northwestern is known for his grit, but even he's not invincible. During one season, chest pains hinted at a heart attack while he was still leading his team. The man refused to back down. That's dedication, but at what cost? Mechanical breakdowns. They're not just annoying, they're life-threatening. The FV Time Bandit dealt with a fire in its engine room. Think about it. Fire at sea with no easy way out. Quick thinking and teamwork saved the day, but it's a reminder that danger is always just one spark away. One of the scariest moments was a man overboard situation on the FV Saga. A deckhand fell into the freezing waters of the Bering Sea. The crew's fast action saved his life, but not every story ends that way. Falling into that icy water can mean the end. Routine doesn't exist out there. The FV Cornelia Marie learned this the hard way when a massive wave slammed onto the deck, knocking a deckhand off his feet and injuring him. Even the smallest slip-up can turn deadly in seconds. Storms out in the Bering Sea? They're like something out of a horror movie. The FV Kodiak battled an Arctic storm so fierce that ice started covering the boat, threatening to flip it over. Imagine having to chip away ice just to stay afloat. Every second counts. On the FV Brenna A, a hydraulic failure caused a crab pot to swing wildly on deck. These pots weigh hundreds of pounds. One wrong move and someone's life could be over. How do they keep working under that kind of pressure? Then there are the tragedies no one wants to think about. The FV Scandies Rose sank on New Year's Eve 2019, taking 5 crew members with it. It's the harsh reality of this job. Sometimes the sea just doesn't let go. Health problems at sea can spiral out of control fast. On the FV Northwestern, deckhand Nick Maver had a medical emergency. Getting help involved coordinating with the Coast Guard and dealing with the ticking clock of being miles away from land. Imagine that level of stress. Navigation isn't easy when the sea's trying to eliminate you. The FV Arctic Hunter ran aground near Dutch Harbor. That's not just embarrassing, it's dangerous for everyone on board. One wrong turn and it's game over. Even personal clashes can make things worse. On the FV Seabrook, tension between the captain and the crew reached a boiling point, making the already dangerous job even harder. When tempers flare, safety takes a hit and mistakes happen. The pressure to hit quotas pushes these crews beyond their limits. The FV Wizard's crew once worked so hard they were barely functioning, leading to slip-ups that almost caused accidents. It's a grueling grind with no room for error. Injuries? They're practically a given. One deckhand on the FV Northwestern crushed his hand in a pot mishap. Imagine the pain in knowing you're stuck miles from proper medical care. The FV Time Bandit dealt with a rogue wave that tilted the entire boat, threatening to capsize it. The crew's quick reactions saved their lives, but how many close calls can one team handle? Fatigue can turn deadly in an instant. On the FV Cornelia Marie, a deckhand almost went overboard after working without enough sleep. It's a stark reminder that rest isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. Even the ship itself can betray you. The FV Northwestern once faced flooding in the engine room from a busted pipe. Water poured in, and the crew had to act fast to stop the boat from sinking. Every second mattered. On the FV Wizard, a deckhand got tangled in a line, nearly getting dragged overboard. Quick action from the team saved him, but it shows how easily things can spiral out of control. The FV Saga's mechanical failure left it stranded in rough seas. No power, no way out. It was up to the crew to fix the problem and survive. It's moments like these that prove just how tough these fishermen are. Fires are another terrifying risk. The FV Cornelia Marie faced flames in the galley. A fire at sea could mean the end of everything. Luckily, the crew managed to put it out before it spread. Slippery decks add to the danger. On the FV Northwestern, a deckhand slipped and suffered a severe back injury. It's a workplace where one wrong step can have lifelong consequences. When the FV Time Bandit had to search for a nearby vessel in trouble, it wasn't just about fishing anymore. They became rescuers, proving that even in this brutal line of work, there's a bond between those who face the sea's wrath. Before we wrap this up, let's be clear. These are just a few of the countless near-death experiences these crews endure. Deadliest Catch doesn't just show you fishing, it shows you survival in its rawest form. And the sea? It never takes a day off. With danger all around them, Sig Hansen's story goes back to where it all started, showing how his family built their life on hard work in the sea. A family legacy built on the ocean. Sig Hansen's story doesn't start with glamour or fanfare, but with the grit and cold waters of Seattle. Born on April 28, 1966, Sig grew up in the Ballard neighborhood, a place buzzing with Scandinavian culture and steeped in fishing traditions. As the oldest of three brothers, Sig carried the weight of expectations in a family where the sea wasn't just a livelihood, it was a legacy. His parents, Sverre and Snefrid Hansen, made sure their Norwegian roots ran deep. At home, Norwegian was the language of choice, and Sig picked it up before he ever learned a word of English. The Hansen name wasn't just another one in Ballard, it came with history. The family had been in the fishing game for 4 generations, and they weren't about to let that change. Sverre Hansen, the family patriarch, wasn't just a fisherman, he was a game changer. He and his father introduced opilio crab fishing to the Alaskan waters, which meant the boats could fish year-round instead of squeezing everything into a few months. This wasn't just a new technique, it was a lifeline that kept families afloat, literally and financially. The youngest generation's first taste of the sea came young, really young. By the time he hit 14, one of Sverre's sons was already working summers on the FV Northwestern, the family's pride and joy. Forget about lazy teenage years, his school breaks were spent knee-deep in hard labor. And if you think he hated it, you'd be wrong. He loved the thrill, the challenge, and let's face it, the rebellion of skipping school to join fishing trips. It wasn't just work, it was a calling. After high school, he didn't bother with college. The sea was his classroom, and he was an eager student. By 22, the same son wasn't just a deckhand anymore, he was stepping up as a relief skipper. That means when the captain couldn't do the job, he was the guy. Not bad for someone barely out of his teens, right? 2 years later, at just 24, he took full command of the Northwestern. If you're thinking that sounds risky, you're not wrong, but under his leadership, the boat didn't just survive, it thrived. It became one of the top producers in the fleet and, get this, had a safety record that put others to shame. No fatalities and fewer injuries than the rest of the boats in the brutal Bering Sea. That's no small feat. Fast forward to the mid-2000s and the Northwestern was racking up wins like a sports team. During the last Derby-style king crab and opilio crab seasons, the boat hauled in the highest poundage and the biggest earnings. And let's not forget the fame. The boat's success was featured on Deadliest Catch, making the Hansen family a household name. But it wasn't just the captain's show. Brothers Norman and Edgar were right there beside him, keeping the family tradition alive. The family's story didn't stop at fishing. Their tales hit the page with the book North by Northwestern, which made it to the New York Times bestseller list. Oh, and they even dabbled in Hollywood, lending a voice to a character in Cars 2. By 2014, the family's legacy was cemented when one of them was inducted into the Scandinavian American Hall of Fame. That's right, a fisherman with a plaque in a Hall of Fame. Not bad for a family from Ballard who grew up with saltwater in their veins. But let's not sugarcoat it. The road wasn't easy and the sea isn't forgiving. The early days were shaped by back-breaking work, family expectations, and the ever-present danger of the waters. The Bering Sea doesn't care about your plans. It's a place where one wrong move can mean disaster. Before we get to the glitz and fame, it's clear that the Hansen story was built on resilience and risk. And if you think the worst is over, think again. The sea has a way of testing even the toughest captains, and their story is far from smooth sailing. As waves crashed around them, the crew learned that the biggest challenges aren't always from the sea temper's flare on the roughest seas. The sheer chaos of the Bering Sea can push anyone to their breaking point, and the crew of Deadliest Catch shows us that sometimes the real storms are the ones brewing on deck. The constant danger, brutal hours, and pressure to deliver big hauls have turned these boats into powder kegs ready to blow. And when tempers flare, the results can be as explosive as the sea itself. Take Captain Keith Colburn from the FV Wizard in Season 7. Imagine the stress of managing a crew, keeping the boat afloat and making sure your crab pots are loaded. Then add a cameraman getting a little too close for comfort. Captain Keith snapped, clashing with Brad Carper over what Keith saw as intrusive filming. It was a fiery exchange that showed just how thin the line is between professionalism and frustration when every second counts, and the cameras don't stop rolling. Season 12 brought its own set of fireworks. Over on the FV Saga, Captain Jake Anderson had his hands full with deckhands who weren't exactly on the same page. Arguments about safety and job expectations got loud and personal, showing how quickly things can unravel when communication breaks down. Meanwhile, back on the Wizard, Captain Keith faced pushback from his own crew about decisions he'd made. The dynamic between authority and respect played out in real time, proving that even seasoned leaders can find themselves on shaky ground when the stakes are high. The FV Northwestern, led by Captain Sig Hansen, didn't escape its share of drama either. Deckhand Jake Anderson, eager to rise through the ranks, found himself at odds with the older crew. His ambitious moves rubbed some the wrong way, causing tension that spilled into heated disputes. Integrating fresh talent into an experienced team might sound simple, but it's a tightrope act when egos and expectations collide on a rolling deck. Then there's Captain Jonathan Hillstrand of the FV Time Bandit. Known for his larger-than-life personality, he found himself in a no-holds-barred confrontation with a crew member whose repeated mistakes put everyone at risk. This wasn't just a yelling match, it was a wake-up call about the life-and-death stakes of crab fishing. The fight underscored the brutal reality that there's no room for error when every move could mean the difference between going home or not. But here's the thing about these blow-ups. They're not just about anger or frustration. They're also about survival, not just in the literal sense, but as a team. After the shouting dies down and the adrenaline fades, these crews often come out stronger. They're forced to face their issues head-on because there's no escape when you're stuck on a boat in the middle of nowhere. Somehow, through the chaos, they find a way to rebuild trust and push forward. Deadliest Catch doesn't just give us epic battles with the sea, it shows us the fights that happen when humans are pushed to their limits. These moments of conflict, raw and unfiltered, highlight the intense pressure cooker environment these crews endure. They're not just about catching crab, they're about navigating the storms within themselves and each other. And let's be honest, watching it all unfold is a reminder that even in the harshest conditions, people find a way to keep going, even if it's after a screaming match on deck. Is Sig Hansen's heartbreaking moment a reminder of the dangers of commercial fishing, or could more have been done to prevent such tragedies at sea? Was this an unavoidable accident, or are deeper questions about safety being ignored? Tell us what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.